The mirror had haunted David's family for centuries, a silent, silvered curse passed down through generations. They whispered about it in hushed, fearful tones, warning that it didn't show your reflection. It showed the exact moment you would die. Tonight, a morbid curiosity, sharp and insistent as a splinter beneath the skin, forced him to face it, and maybe, just maybe, his very last mistake. He had grown up with the tales, bedtime stories that stole sleep and replaced it with a creeping dread, ancestors who vanished without a trace, their lives cut short by inexplicable tragedies, fortunes that crumbled to dust overnight, minds that frayed into madness, all inexplicably linked back to this one cursed object. The stories were more than just folklore. He'd found proof, tucked away in brittle letters and the faded ink of old diaries, a breadcrumb trail of terror hinting that the mirror was no mere superstition. It was a sentient thing, a predator that demanded attention, and it paid its viewers back in pure, undiluted terror. The narrow attic stairs groaned under his weight, each creak a protest in the oppressive silence of the old house. His flashlight beam trembled, cutting a nervous, bouncing path through the thick, stagnant air. Dust motes danced like frantic sprites in the light. Beneath a heavy, moth-eaten sheet, its corners frayed and discolored by time, he found it. The mirror's frame was ornate, carved from a wood so dark it seemed to swallow the light, intricate patterns of vines and thorns swirling into grotesque, leering faces. He reached out, his hand hesitating for a moment before he pulled the sheet away. A cloud of ancient dust billowed into the air, carrying the scent of decay and forgotten things. As he wiped away centuries of grime from the glass with the sleeve of his jacket, the reflection that slowly emerged seemed wrong. It wasn't him. It was a distorted, wavering image, a funhouse version of reality. Then he saw it. A shadow, darker than the surrounding gloom, moved behind his reflection. It stumbled, a lurching, disjointed movement, before collapsing into the inky blackness. His pulse hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of panic, and a glacial chill, sharp and piercing, ran down his spine. The attic suddenly felt colder, the air heavier, as if the very presence of the mirror had stolen all the warmth from the room. He couldn't tear his eyes away, frozen in a cocktail of fear and fascination. The reflection was his own again, but the terror in his eyes was a new, permanent feature. In the days that followed, the mirror's presence clung to him like a shroud. It was no longer confined to the dusty attic. Its curse had seeped into the very fabric of his life. The vision's dark promise began to manifest in a series of unnerving, near-miss accidents. A scalding pot of coffee inexplicably tipped over, missing his hand by a fraction of an inch, but leaving a starburst of angry red on the floorboards. The brakes on his car, just serviced last week, suddenly failed as he approached a busy intersection, the pedal sinking uselessly to the floor before catching with a violent jolt at the last possible second. He started hearing things, faint, sibilant whispers that slithered from the corners of quiet rooms, the sound of someone stumbling and falling in the apartment above, even when he knew it was empty. Every reflective surface became an instrument of torment, a portal for the mirror's insidious visions. The polished curve of a spoon would distort his face into a mask of agony. The dark, glossy screen of his phone, when it caught the light just right, would flash with a flicker of a collapsing shadow. The windows of his home no longer showed the world outside. They showed subtle, terrifying distortions of impending danger. A car speeding towards a curb, a branch cracking ominously overhead. Paranoia became his constant companion, a relentless, gnawing beast that consumed his thoughts and stole his sanity. Sleep offered no escape, his nights filled with restless tossing and turning, his mind trapped in a loop of the shadowy figure's fall. Desperate for answers, for any way to sever this connection, David sought out an old, reclusive collector, a man rumored to deal in cursed artifacts and things best left undisturbed. He found him in a dimly lit antique shop that smelled of old paper, wood polish, and something else, something metallic and faintly unsettling, like old blood. The elderly man's eyes, cloudy with age but sharp with an unnerving knowing, appraised David from behind a clutter of arcane objects. After listening to David's frantic, rambling story, the collector leaned forward, his voice a dry, rasping whisper that seemed to scrape the air. "Mirrors like the one you describe are not mere objects," he warned, his gaze unwavering. "They are gateways. They do not trade in reflections. They trade in fate. Once it has shown you its vision, once it knows you, you cannot escape its bargain." The words hung in the dusty air, a grim pronouncement. But obsession had taken root in David's mind, a virulent weed that choked out all reason and caution. The fear was still there, a cold knot in his stomach, but it was now overshadowed by a burning, desperate need to understand. He thanked the old man, the warning echoing in his ears, but he knew he wouldn't heed it. He returned to the attic that night, and the night after, and the night after that, a moth drawn to a flame that promised only immolation. He would study the mirror's every detail, every subtle shift in the glass, a prisoner determined to understand the architecture of his own cage. The visions grew more frequent, more vivid, more terrifyingly specific. He was no longer just watching a shadow fall. He was living 1,000 different deaths. One night, the glass swirled with angry orange and red, and he saw himself trapped in a room engulfed in fire, the heat so intense he could feel it on his skin, the roar of the flames deafening in the silent attic. The next, the mirror's surface became a churning, dark expanse of water, and he saw himself drowning, his lungs burning for air, the cold, crushing pressure of the depths squeezing the life from him. He saw himself falling from a great height, the wind screaming in his ears, the ground rushing up to meet him in a final brutal embrace. The mirror began to play a crueler game, showing him alternate outcomes, small, seemingly insignificant choices that branched into pathways of life or death. Should he take the elevator or the stairs? Turn left or turn right? Each decision, no matter how mundane, felt predestined. Every moment, a high-stakes gamble on a tightrope stretched over an abyss of inevitable doom. He became a prisoner of his own obsession, unable to look away, unable to break free. He paced through the rooms of his house, his reflection mocking him from every surface, the candlelight he used to navigate the nights flickering and casting long, twisting shadows that danced like demons on the walls. Objects seemed to move when his back was turned, a book slightly askew, a chair moved an inch to the left. The air grew thick and heavy with dread, a palpable, suffocating presence that pressed in on him from all sides. One night, as a violent storm raged outside, rattling the windows in their frames, David faced the mirror one last time. Lightning flashed, illuminating the attic in a stark, momentary brilliance, and in that flash, he saw the final, undeniable truth. Acrid smoke began to curl into the room, its source unseen, its scent sharp and chemical. In the reflection, the attic around him was collapsing, the walls buckling inward, wooden beams splintering and falling. Flames, real and terrifying, crept up the walls of the mirrored world, consuming everything in their path. This was no longer a warning, no longer a possibility. This was it. This was happening. In a final, desperate act of defiance, he roared and lunged forward, smashing his fist into the glass. The mirror shattered, exploding outward in a shower of razor-sharp shards. The glass flew through the air, cutting his hands and face, but the pain was a distant, secondary sensation. Through the web of cracks, the reflection remained, but it was no longer his. The shadow was there, its form clearer now, and it was grinning, a silent, triumphant rictus of pure malice. The mirror lay broken on the floor, its power seemingly spent, but as he stared at the largest remaining shard, he saw the flames still burning, the shadow still grinning. The curse was not in the glass. The mirror was gone, but the curse lingered, imprinted on his soul. Every reflective surface, every glint of light on metal or water, was now a reminder of the price he had already paid, a down payment on a debt that could only be settled by his death. Some mirrors don't just show you your death, they follow you, patiently waiting for that one single moment when you forget the terrible price of looking